Good morning. Good morning. Going to give us a moment to chime in here as we are preparing for book club on today. I'm so excited about book club and spending this time with us. I'm looking forward to those things that we are going to receive today during book club. Book club, book club. This has been just such a joy for me. Amazing, 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 amazing. Okay, I'm going to give us a minute here. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. I'm so excited to spend this time with us this morning. Looking forward to the fruit of our time. Praying all is well with you this morning and that you are enjoying the best of that which the Father has to offer you. I'm greeting each day with expectation. And I'm enjoying the Father in this season. I really am. This, focus on boundaries is really helping to reinforce some things and helping me to focus right. It is. It's helping me to focus right so that I'm giving my energy and my time to those things that matter the most. It's so important that we know what we value, what matters to us, what matters the most. And when we focus therein, it makes a huge difference in how we face things that um, really are not critical or core concerns. I'm learning not to waste my time in areas that are not the primary areas for my life. I can't afford to give energy and emotion to areas that draw me away from what I should be focusing on. I have enough under the realm of my responsibility, and you have enough under the realm of your responsibility that you need to focus on and give your energy and your attention to without it being drawn away by areas that are not what's most important for your life. Remember, the word of God. Jesus says in the book of John, I must work the works of him who sent me while it's day. Night's coming when no man can work. And oftentimes, when we don't have the proper boundaries in place when it comes to relationships, we are not focused on what we should be doing. We're focused on whatever has us emotionally distracted. Whatever is taking away from us, when things impact us emotionally, it draws away from us. It draws energy. It draws our time of focus, and it draws away the ability to accomplish things that need that energy, that emotional space in our lives. It draws away what's needed there in order for us to complete effectively those things that we have been signed. And so I am praying that as we're going through each of these books in book club, that you really are personalizing them because they're meant to keep us ahead. That's our thing this year. I'm ahead of it. That's our declaration. That's what we've said. And we're still under this umbrella and a woman we're holding on to of life management where we're managing me. I'm managing me better. So managing me better means that I need to stay ahead of it. I'm ahead of it. I got to look at some areas where I typically fall, where I fail. We said that last year's blunders weren't going to be this year's blunders. And that means that we have to take care of and take a look at some of those painful areas that we typically like to avoid. We don't like to discuss, we don't like to address, but we can't get ahead of it if we're afraid to address it. We can't. We can't get ahead of it if we are afraid to admit it. We can't. It keeps us in that same place. I told you, wearing this all month. This is my Living Life in Limbo necklace, and it has my initial in the middle, and on one side is an anchor. And this anchor represents those things that have had me bound or that have me bound that are preventing me from moving forward. And I'm expending all of this energy, extending it towards things and people and places and projects, trying to fix things from the past. When on the other side, I have a little emblem that says hope. On the other side is hope. And my hope is wrapped in expectation, and that expectation is attached to my future. Okay, so I'm between two realms, and I'm looping in limbo. I'm going around in circles, and so when I'm struggling with some things this month, I might grab a hold to my initial T in the middle of these, and I turn it just to remind me when I don't address it, when I don't admit it, then I'm just looping in limbo. I'm using a bunch of energy, but it's not accomplishing anything. And I want movement. I don't know about you. We're making these declarations regarding my marching orders. March is the month of movement. Well, I want my movement to progress me. Progress me. I don't want to be stuck in the past and held hostage and thinking I'm making progress. Think I'm making progress just because I'm busy. Busyness does not mean progress. It doesn't mean progress. Busyness can be distracting if you're not focused in the right place and if you're not on the right track. And one of these areas where we really need to bring in our focus is with establishing healthy boundaries. And I'm just loving this book by Lysa Terkeurst, who encourages us. She's real honest in this book regarding these boundaries and relationships. Why with relationships are we looking at boundaries? Because Matthew 22:37 through 39. This is Jesus talking. He's responding to a question by the Pharisees. They want to know what's the greatest commandment. And Jesus responds, the first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and with all of our mind. He said that's the first and greatest. And the second is like it, to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so we're looking at relationship because according to this passage, according to what Jesus says here, the first and greatest commandment is this love factor, is relationship. Deuteronomy 6:5 also, this is Moses, one of the first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch, the law. This is in the beginning. And as you see, Jesus didn't do away with the law. He came to fulfill it. And so what Moses says in Deuteronomy 6:5 is, hear ye, the Lord is one. You should love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, and your strength. It says in this particular passage. So we see a consistency in the word relative to what matters most is relationship. It's relationship. And we have to move from this place of disregarding relationship and looking at improving. We have to look at improving how we operate in relationship, the relationships that are healthy for us, those that aren't healthy for us, those things that trigger us in relationships. She deals with that in this book, which is just yeah, those triggers, those things that happen, that triggers memories of things happening in times past that hurt us, that wounded us, that affect how we see us, which in turn affects how we see others when things happen in relationship, because we're just going based on past experience, because that's all we know. So that's all we have to go on. But from here, we want to grow this month. We want to grow as we look at these boundaries. We want to grow. We want to grow. I want to take us again to her definition of boundaries, her definition of boundaries. Why? Because I want to make sure that we're staying on track as we take a look at this area of boundaries. Good morning, Coach Ann Sally. Good morning, a woman worth holding on to, Barbara. Good morning, woman worth holding on to, Lola. Good morning, a woman worth holding on to, Diane, and those others who've joined in. Just greet us as you come in the stream as we discuss this book, Boundaries. Okay, let's take a look again at the definition that Lysa Terkeurst gives us for this area of boundaries. She indicates we set boundaries when we want to love those around us really well without losing ourselves in the process. And this chapter 7 that we're going to look at a little bit of today, it really, it really deals with that, not losing ourselves in the process. Good boundaries help us preserve the love within us, even when some relationships around us become unsustainable, and we must accept the reality of a goodbye. Okay. Good boundaries help us to preserve the love within us, even when some relationships around us become unsustainable, and we must accept the reality of a goodbye. We can't enable bad behavior in ourselves and others and call it love. We can't tolerate destructive patterns and call it love. We can't pride ourselves with being loyal and long suffering in our relationships when it's really perpetuating violations of what God says love is. This is just so good. And I love it. I love it. I love it. So I just wanted to kind of bring back up before us how Lysa defines boundaries for the sake of this particular work that she has written, which is really, this is just such a good book and it's really helping. Chapter 7, just because they say it doesn't mean that you have to own it. Just because they say it doesn't mean that you have to own it. This is huge for me because I've lived a life of owning what others say, whether it was true or not. I've lived a life of owning what others have said, whether it's true or not. I've lived a life of taking in, we often quote this saying. My coach said it, where you tune in, you take in, and what you take in, you become. Okay. So wherever I'm listening, wherever I'm paying attention, whatever I'm meditating on, whatever I'm receiving, you know, that's my tuning in, my taking it in, my meditating on it, my thinking about it, my giving it space in my head, my allowing it to establish strongholds. I don't know if you could identify with that. Allowing it to take a room in my head. So when I think of who I am, what people have said is what circles around, what comes to mind. It has formed my identity concerning who I am. Okay. And then the other part of that motto said, you become. And so you live out whatever you think is what you actualize, is what you do. It's what you do. It's how we live. That's why that passage, Proverbs 4:23 for us, has been so critical this year. It's following us throughout this year with I'm ahead of it. Guard your heart with all diligence, because from it flows the issues of life. We are guarding, and we said that word heart in that passage is relative to our mind, our thought life, what we think, what we're allowing to be established in our heads regarding us. We're getting a head start on this thing. Whatever gets in my head, it really fuels my passion, my desires. It takes over. Whatever I think, that's why the enemy battles us so for our mind. That's why he seeks to confuse us even early in the day when we get up in the morning. As I get up in the morning, I start my day by listening to prayer. I have a prayer I listen to every morning. And then I have affirmations to form my day, to help just grab my thoughts. And all of this is based on the word of God. I grab it. I determine by way of what I listen to, what I take in, I determine what my thoughts will be. Okay. And I choose. So I choose the word of God relative to my mindset concerning me and those things that support, that reaffirm, that line up, that align with what the word of God has to say about me. So it's important. It's important. This chapter it brought back so many memories. And some of these things I still wrestle with as I read in here. Just because they say it, doesn't mean that I have to own it. She gives an example at the beginning of this chapter about a system they used in school, with the chalkboard, putting things on the chalkboard, and based on behavior, it would determine what color the card would be on the board. And then even how sometimes her friends would think that it was funny, or kids in the class, to say some things that weren't true about her, and then she'd get marked. She'd get a mark that wouldn't be good. It would affect her. It would affect how she behaved. It would affect her trying to prove, who she was, and all of that. And as I'm reading, as I'm listening to it, I was like, man, I went through some similar things in childhood, and then I had to be honest, like just childhood, but even adulthood, with people assigning or accusing or saying things that might not be true. It's not who I am. It's not my character. My daddy would also always say, the truth will defend itself, So you just be. And as you live life, your truth will defend itself because you're living your truth. That's why that portion of our mission that a Women Worth Holding On to, we are a Christian community of women living authentically. We're living our truth. We're living authentically. And that's what I was taught. You just be you. Just live your truth, and truth will defend itself. People will see. People will see. And then as they will see what doesn't line up with who you really are as they experience you. And those who don't want to see, We don't extend energy. You don't have to extend energy with those who just don't want to see. Proving who you are, just be and live the life the Father has created you to live. Just be, just be. This is a powerful chapter that just points out so much. And the author even admitted, she still wrestles with some of this now. All of us will wrestle with it. But when we have these tools in place, these tools that she's given us, that it helps us. It helps us not to get stuck there and not to go too far off of track, but to remain on track with just living our truth. I just want you to put in the stream, because book club is really discussion. The format really isn't me narrating or lecturing this. And next week, I'm going to pull some of you out of the stream into discussion, because this is real good for discussion. This discussion helps us to identify and to overcome. And so I'm looking forward. This is the last week that I'll be doing it in this format, because you're discussing and you're joining me. It's just so critical. Okay. And so I want you to put in the stream, have you ever found yourself trying to prove to people that you aren't who they say you are? And I just want to see some of your comments as we go through this discussion. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been in a place where you've been trying to prove to people that you really aren't who they're saying you are? They're accusing you of being, something. And so you're trying to prove to them that I'm really not that person that you say. Have you ever been there? Oh, I've been there. And again, sometimes I have to grab it if I find myself in that place. Often I'll tell people, and those who've walked with me a while, we've been through a lot together. We've been through some good times. My dad would say, I've had some good days. I love that song. Had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and lonely nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days. So I won't complain. And so I have some good, but I'm not going to live in this place of self-deception and pretend like I haven't had some bad days too. All of us have. The word of God says it rains on the just and the unjust. Okay. So all of us go through. Okay. And so I've been through with those that I'm in relationship with, the coaches who've been with me most of them have been with me. We've been in a relationship for 15 to 20 years, some. And then Coach Marcia, since we were kids, we're in a relationship. Coach Annie, since my kids were kids, so these are just solid relationships. And we've been through some unfavorable situations, but we've weathered them together. And there have been times where people have accused me of being something that I'm not, and so I'd often tell them, because we have grown to love one another. We have. And we know that none of us are perfect. Just tell them, I'm just going to be. So I don't want you to get into arguments with people trying to defend who I am or who my family is. I love you guys so much. I really do. We've been through so much together. But as I live, you know me. You walk with me. You walk closely with me. You know my character. You know what I would and wouldn't do, even when some things are going on that kind of look like I'm veering. You know what's at my core. You know my heart. And that's what this deals with in this 7th chapter. Your heart, and not letting your identity, who you are at your core, being determined by what somebody is saying about you. And so because we walk together and you know me, and you've gotten to know me even in the worst of times, and how I will respond, how I won't respond, what I will do and what I won't do, then just let my truth. That's what my daddy taught me. Your truth, who you truly are. Yeah, it shows up. And it shows up as a defense. When establishing boundaries, sometimes where I have found myself, and she deals with this in this chapter, and she talks about, taking on ownership, owning what others say, even if it's not true. And I can remember a season, just as I was reading this book, just brings up so much, and reminds me of habits that I have of, even if it wasn't me, accepting it and apologizing for something that was not true. owning it, and the other person walking away feeling validated, um, and I'm left torn down and feeling less than, and upset because now I have given you what you wanted by saying, okay, yeah, that's really me. That's really my motive. That's really what I was setting out to do when it wasn't true. Accepting it instead of being honest, even though the other person might not agree with your honesty relative to how they view you and how they view whatever has happened in relationship. Instead of being honest, because I was so afraid of a rift or what the other person might say or what they might do, how they might treat me. They're distancing from me emotionally. And you know, that place for me, it's a really rough place that I've overcome, but I have to watch it, because if I leave it unguarded and I just let people deep in without watching and being wise, it takes me back to that place of fear of rejection, which is a very dark place. And because I so feared rejection, I would accept things that were not true, and I had no boundaries. So the other individual would feel validated, but I was wounded. And I felt bad about me because I was not honest in those situations relative to how I really felt, or the truth about me, or who I am or who I'm not standing up for me. I had to learn how to stand up for me and to just be me and be honest. I don't have to be brutal. You don't have to be brutal to be honest, but you have to realize with establishing boundaries so that you're in a healthy relationship, sometimes your honesty is not going to be received. And that may mean a goodbye. And goodbyes can be painful. They can hurt. Yeah. Because most times we want reconciliation. And sometimes reconciliation is not possible. Okay. But that does not mean um, that we have to remain in unhealthy relationships if the other party is not willing to accept your boundaries. You're responsible for guarding those boundaries, protecting those boundaries, you, so that you're in a healthy relationship. I want to give you some of these comments that she made, and I want to hear some things from you too, relative to that. If you have ever had that struggle, maybe it's just me. Well, me and the author, because I see she had the struggle too, speaking up for herself and defending herself because of fear of what would happen on the other side. You know, overthinking. Someone told me the other day, you overthink, stop overthinking, stop overthinking, stop overthinking. Um, and I have overthought, in relationships, overthought, okay, if I'm honest with them about how this affected me and I don't like it and it wounded me, then they're going to disconnect from me. They're not going to want to be in relationship with me anymore. They're going to distance from me emotionally, and I can't take that emotional distancing. It hurts. I don't like hurting. I don't like the feeling of hurting. Well, the word of God does not tell us that we're not going to hurt. It doesn't. I know we try to escape pain, um, but it's a part of living. It's a part of life. And I had to become accustomed to that. I had to become accustomed to, even in healthy relationships, there are going to be seasons of pain where we're going to have to address some things that are not going to be pleasant. I never liked confrontation. And those who've walked with me for a while can tell you, I've never liked confrontation. I would avoid it. There was a young lady at my dad's church. I remember when she first came, and she walked up to me and she said, I've been sent to help you deal with confrontation, excuse me. And I kind of backed up. I was like, the devil, what is this mess? She don't know me, so internally I'm smiling on the outside. And I'm like, okay, because that was my motto inside. I'm like, she don't know me. She better back up off of me. um, but she recognized that I had a problem with confrontation. I never liked confrontation. I didn't like what it represented to me. It was always bad to me. I always viewed it as bad. But confronting issues is not a bad thing. It's the method in which we do it. How we do it matters. but it's not a bad thing. It isn't. If we don't confront things that are not healthy, that are not good, then what happens is they don't go away just because we avoid them, we don't address them. They don't go away. Oftentimes they grow because the patterns are going to be repeated because we have not taken time to address them. And in addressing them, giving the other party an opportunity to adjust their behavior, or if they're not adjusting, giving us the opportunity to put those boundaries in place so that we're healthy, even if they don't want to be, regarding us. Look at a couple of takeaways that the author gives us from this particular section. Um, God's love isn't based on me, it's simply placed on me. And it's placed on me. Um, it's the place from which I live. It's the place from which I should live. So the love of the Father, which is unconditional, and He proved it through His sacrifice of His Son. And He did it even before I changed, while I was still in sin, doing wrong, even before I changed. He placed this love on me. And with this love, He's drawn me to Him. I so love the Father. Oh, I love Him. And I love how He loves me. And that's my healthy place. So that's the place from where I live. That's where I define me from, His love, and what He thinks of me. Okay. Healthy people who desire healthy relationships don't have an issue with boundaries. Okay. And so if I'm healthy and the other person is healthy, then, we don't have a problem with boundaries. We don't have a problem with taking a look at lines that we shouldn't cross. I was having a discussion with someone a couple of weeks ago regarding a relationship and how I'd reached, and the individual said that they would reach back or have somebody reach to me so that we can connect. And I told them, that was a line in the sand for me. That was a boundary. So I'm not going to cross, because what you've told me is before we proceed, I'll have somebody reach because I'm not ready. And I'm cool. If you're not ready, I'm not going to push past. I call it guarded vulnerability, is a term that I use often. And any of those who walk with me through coaching, you know that term. I'm not going to try to force anybody any further than they desire to go or are willing to go. And I'm not going to let anybody force me any further than I desire to go and am willing to go. If our identity is tied to people's opinions of us, we need to reassess. If our identities is tied to people's opinion of us. Now, that does not mean that we live reckless lives and say, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just doing me. I'm being me. No, what that means is our core beliefs regarding ourselves. At our core, if how I feel about me at my core is based on everybody else's opinions, then we need to take another look at that, because I see myself again from the love that the Father has placed on me. I see myself from the place that He has created me to be and what He's invested in me. That's where I see me from. That's what defines me and what I do. That's what determines how I interact with people or don't interact with people. That's the determiner. That determines my boundaries. Okay. All right. Posing a boundary as a question leaves us open to be questioned, debated, and disrespected. So if there's a boundary that I have, and I'm posing it as a question, asking people if my boundary is okay. I'm asking you for permission to have this boundary for my health. If I do it that way, it's going to have people disrespecting and questioning that boundary, and even debated it as if it's up to debate what's good for me or not for me. No, my boundaries are not up for debate. They're not. These are my boundaries. This is as far as we go so that we remain in a healthy place. This is as far as I'm willing to go. This is my line, and my line is not debatable. Okay. All right. If presented with doubt, a boundary won't be effectively carried out. Okay. So if I'm doubtful, if I'm not clear on what my boundaries should be in a relationship, it's not going to be carried out. I'm not going to follow through. I'm not. And so I have to be clear on what my boundaries are. Or I'm going to find myself in a place of not following through on not allowing certain lines to be crossed in relationship. Someone was joking with me, having conversation, and they said some things. It's interaction that we typically don't have, and they said something relative to me that was not true. You know, they were joking, but right there, I said, no, we don't do that. We've never done that, and we're not going to start doing that. I don't find that funny, so I'm not going to let you think that's okay for me in relationship with me. Um, Maybe you could do that with somebody else, but for me, we don't play like that. Okay. And I was firm relative to it because I meant it. There are certain lines that I am not going to allow to be crossed in relationship with me. You're going to know. Now you may play around with somebody else, putting them down, and say, oh, I was just playing. No, I'm not even going to give room or ground for that because I'm a builder. I'm an encourager. And because I know me and how low my self-esteem was, and for years how I took on what other people said, I'm not going to give room for playing like that because there's a place in me that's waiting, that's familiar for stuff like that to come back so that it can grab it. And I'm not going to be 7 times worse than I was. Oh no, I'm not giving room. So you got to be clear. If there is doubt, that boundary will not be carried out. You have to be clear regarding your boundaries. It's my responsibility not to let the actions and expectations of others wear me down to the worst version of me. Okay. We won't get healthy results from unhealthy relationships. And when God is the source of our identity, we are much less prone to others feeding our insecurity. Ah, that's so good. He has to be our source. This was such a powerful chapter that took me back to so many memories that I didn't have a chance to just really share with you. I shared some of them with you. I can't wait till next week until others are discussing, so we really can lift some things up relative to this book on good boundaries and goodbyes. It's such a powerful, just a powerful tool with helping us to reinforce boundaries for healthy relationship living. Just want to remind you, just because they say it, it doesn't mean that you have to own it. So stop owning stuff that's not true to you, that's not at your core. Don't own it. Don't accept it. You don't have to. Okay. All right. We'll see the next portion of our read through this book. This is a powerful book. I'm loving it. I'm loving how it's growing us, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you again in the next couple of weeks through this book. We only have a couple more weeks in this book, and then we're on to the second quarter and our next book that is helping us to grow, that is making us better so that we can manage us better as we manage this life, as we are good stewards over the life the Father has given us to live. I'm excited. We're getting ahead of it. We're not handling things the way we did last year. We're getting ahead of it as we grow internally, first in us and then through us. I love you. Blessings for your day.